Welcome to the Healing Pod. I'm Megan, a licensed clinical psychologist.
And I'm Jessica, a licensed clinical social worker, and this is our journey of navigating anxiety as we learn to take up space and create an environment where we feel that we can belong.
Join us together as we learn not just to survive, but to thrive in our anxious brains.
This podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for professional therapy or medical advice. If you are experiencing any mental health concerns, please seek support from a qualified mental health professional or healthcare provider. Remember, your mental health is important, and seeking personalized professional help is key to your well-being.
And welcome back. We have Kasie helping me out again for the second week in a row. I love you and I owe you so much. 2 weeks.
Oh, God.
We're keeping this woman.
I was not prepared. Why did that?
It's an iPhone feature, not a bug.
Oh, my God, that's funny. All right,
So
moving
yes.
on.
So moving on, we have Kasie back. Jess, love you dearly. I really hope your life calms down because, oh boy,
Sorry,
it needs
Jess.
to. But we are here. We gotcha. We got this. So yeah, it's been a very, very long day. And instead of being smart and saying, wow, Kasie just worked a 12-hour straight day, and I worked less than that, but still a long day, let's have an uplifting topic. Instead of that, we are going to talk about pet loss and grief.
Going back again to what I know, dogs.
Dogs, and actually, you have a picture in your background of Spikety.
The best little kitty that ever was.
She really was.
We have a couple of different takes on this. We've obviously lost our own personal pets, but you also run a pet loss support group once a month with our local vet. So we got this from all sides.
Yeah, so on top of doing therapy and doing fun things like this, our local vet, who is an absolute sweetheart, and we love you to death, Kyle. You are amazing.
Kyle, you're the greatest.
She is amazing, top tier. She did a bunch of training and reached out to me a while ago, pre-COVID actually, and asked if I would help her run a support group. And we've been doing it once a month since then. It does meet online, so if anybody needs it, doesn't matter where you're at, we can get you in. We can get you a link. We have a Facebook page, and it's a lot. It's a lot. Pet grief is interesting because you either get it or you don't understand why everyone is so upset about it.
Yeah, I feel like as years go on, people are, I would say the majority of people or more people are starting to get why it is such a big the loss. And, obviously when I was growing up, I mean, I'm old, but I'm not that old. The first dog I remember, she had a doghouse outside and she would come in when the weather was bad, but attitudes towards pets are obviously changing rapidly in the United States.
And for the better, we're taking care of them better, we are treating them better, we are understanding their needs better, and because of this, we're forming stronger relationships with our pets. We're forming these deeper bonds. We are in this caretaking role for these creatures that have nothing but unconditional love for us. And when we lose them, it hurts.
It does, and it's I would never compare losing a pet to losing a person. It's just a different kind of grief. But because we spend so much time with our pets and we are around them all the time, it's not, it's obviously everyone refers to dogs as their starter child. If you don't think you're ready for having a kid, get a dog and see how that goes. They rely on us from the time we bring them home to the time they pass away. Kids as they get older become more independent and rely on you less and less. That dog is going to need you just as much at 8 weeks as it is at 18 years, possibly more.
Definitely more. And there is actually studies out there. I'll have to see if I have the links from Kyle somewhere. It is similar to losing a person. It's obviously different. So grief comes with the caveat of your grief is always going to be your own. It is never going to be exactly like anyone else's. How it hits you, how you deal with it, how long it lasts, how deep it goes. is incredibly personal. And because of that, losing a pet can be on par for some people of losing a human counterpart in some form.
Yeah. And even especially not even just with dogs. I was talking to Barry, the guy up the road who sells us our hay and does a lot of help with us. He recently had one of his clients who boards horses there. She just had to put her horse down, and they had been together for 30 years. I can't even imagine losing an animal that you have had basically its entire life, your entire life. It would be, I can't even imagine how hard that must be.
Yeah. And something that is so integral. You were talking about how we're treating pets differently nowadays than we did. It's no longer, here's this animal that sits outside and barks once in a while and we throw food at it. Here's this animal that greets us every day, that we do training with, that we do loving. Ours work with us. Kirby comes to work with me, Trigger comes to work with you. Ours are an integral part of our day. And throughout their lives, you have puppies and learning to take care of them and getting them house trained and getting them
Mhm.
housebroken. And then at the end of life, you have that continued care of, all right, here's this piece is starting to go and this aspect's going. So I need to bolster them there. I need to help the dog up and down the stairs. I need to make sure I'm taking them out again. They have medications that they need, treatments that they need. There is a lot of ourselves that we put into these relationships that we take on this role for. And when we lose it in any way, it hurts. It hits hard.
And I think with household pets or with, and honestly any pet, not just the household ones, so often we are having to make that decision to say the kindest thing to do is to let you go, and that is the worst. I mean, it's been 2.5 years since we said goodbye to Noah, and we had Kyle the vet come to our house so that he could be in his home environment. But having to make that decision was so unbelievably hard. And there's not a doubt in my mind that we made the right one at the right time. But that's a whole nother added wrinkle because even though it was time for Noah, I still couldn't help but wonder, like, did we say goodbye too soon? Did we do the right thing? I think that adds a whole different level to the grief that you're already feeling at having to say goodbye to them.
Yeah, that level of uncertainty, because there is no definite answer.
No.
There are situations like one of our cats, this is it, we cannot, he had a blood clot and it was just, he was in
Oh.
pain and it had to stop. I know, poor cow, such a good boy. But it was just, no, we cannot do anything about this. We can't help him. But with Noah, it really was making that choice of when is his quality of life not feasible for him? When can we give him peace before he's hurt?
Yeah, and but those two pets were so very different because Calvin was completely fine the night before, and we got up in the morning and something was so obviously wrong. It
Mhm.
happened that fast, and the decision was really made for us. With Noah, we set his euthanasia date weeks in advance. We
Mm.
saw the writing on the wall as far as physical and mentally he was starting to decline as well. But the idea of saying, okay, next week we're gonna have to say goodbye, I couldn't do it. I had to set it a little bit
Mhm.
further out, and I knew he would be okay until then. And if something changed, we could change the plan. But those were two very different experiences, and
Mhm.
neither was any easier to go through.
No, and they both hit, for me especially, they hit very differently and very hard. So with Calvin, I saw him go down the stairs. I said, something's not right. His back legs are not working right. And he just went from walking a little wonky to he couldn't. And then he was in pain. And it was a couple hours start to finish. Like,
Yeah.
it was just so quick. You didn't have time to think. You didn't have time to process. You just had to do it. With Noah, my entire office surprised us with a going away party on his last day. I have never cried so much in front of so many people. My boss at the time, now my partner, it was his day off and he came into the party and oh my gosh, yeah. It was just, everything was decorated. Noah got an entire meatloaf cake made for him. He was
Mhm.
so happy. And there was that time to say goodbye, but it was such a longer goodbye process for me because he was my working dog. I had to go through months of, oh, I haven't seen this client in a while. I have to let them know. Oh, this client's been online for a while. Now they're in person. They're going to, like, there was that reopening of the grief every time I had to
Yeah.
process it with one of my clients.
Yeah. And I think me to a lesser extent because I was very public with my clients and everyone on my Facebook, all of my followers, all of that. I was very public with Noah's goodbye and they had all at least seen him around the place at some point and it was for weeks after literally everyone said I'm so sorry about Noah and I cried in front of every single client I had and everyone was so wonderful about
Mhm.
it.
And that's a big thing too. Like the community we have and the people that we share our pets with, for us it's been very supportive. People understand how much we put into our pets, how much we care about them, how much we do for them. They understand that loss, and that is such a helpful thing in grief. It- It's hard to share grief, and for myself, a lot of times, if there is something big like that, I want my privacy at first. I want it locked down, and I want to be able to sit there with it myself because how I show my emotions in public, they're definitely there, and I cry all the time. But it is a different feeling than how I
Sure.
feel my emotions. So I need to go through that part first, and then I can have that public face of it. And everyone was able to give me that space and then able to meet me with having to, yep, this, you have to grieve too. Okay, you said goodbye too. And it's so different when you don't have that community, when you don't have that support, when you're going through
Yeah.
grief without it. It's incredibly isolating. It's incredibly heavy. It feels worse. It goes towards that depression edge of things because, you know, grief and sadness, you need community, you need support, you need the people pulling around you, you need to share grief to make it lighter.
Right.
But the depression edge is isolation and push me away and disconnect from everyone, and it all gets heavier. And that's why we run a group.
Yeah. Yeah. There's everyone, and it's true of any sort of loss, any sort of tragedy. Everyone grieves differently. I, again, I was very public with how I was feeling, and I honestly started the grieving process long before Noah was even sick because I am an extremely anxious person. And as I saw him start to change when he hit maybe, I don't know, probably when he turned 14, he was still an extremely spry and active dog. But I knew someday he wouldn't be there, and if I sat and thought about it for more than 10, 15 seconds, I would just start to cry. And even with all of that preemptive grief almost, it was still not any easier to wake up one morning to him not being there.
The anticipatory grief is a monster all in and of its own, and it doesn't really take away from the actual loss of the grief. So the anticipatory grief is what you're talking about. It's that anxiety. It's that looking at it. It's that dreading the feeling that you know is going to come. It's
Mhm.
crying about the things and, oh, this is the last time I'm going to do this. Is this the last time I'm going to do that? Like
Ugh,
oh, it's
God, I
bad.
hated that.
It's staring at them to make sure they're still breathing because they're sleeping too deeply and we can't do this yet. All of that stuff. And then especially when you have a pet that you are in that caregiving state, when that end finally comes, there's that guilt of now you're feeling the grief. And also you don't have to. In our last days with Noah, my downstairs, I had every single yoga mat I could on the floor in his pattern because he would just start pacing in circles and he couldn't stop himself. But he would slip. So I had yoga mats so he wouldn't slip. Not having to have the yoga mats down, having our floor back, yay, it's easier to clean, and I hated it.
I hated those yoga mats so much, but not
I
nearly as
hated not
much as I
having them.
hated picking them up after he was gone. And I did after he was gone, I felt I felt I felt really guilty for how simpler so much of our daily routine was. Noah needed a fair bit of care at the end just because needed help getting up off of the floor, and he had to be carried up and downstairs. He required several medications and all that jazz. So, yeah, realistically, him not being here made life a little bit easier, and I felt awful for even
Mhm.
thinking that way.
Absolutely. And it's with pets, we don't get the communication. They love us. You know they love us. We anthropomorphize them and we talk for them all the time. Kirby's got his own voice. I tell everyone his opinions.
Don't you,
We
baby?
don't does. But we don't actually know. They can't look at us and say thank you. They can't look at us and say, don't you dare feel guilty. I'm done. They can't tell us they're done. We have to go on our own faith and trust that we have made the right decision and we have done everything in our power to show our love to these animals. And when you are an anxious, hot mess, like the two of us, and when you don't have that confidence in yourself all the time, you doubt that. You wonder, what else could I have done? Could we have made this easier? Was it the right choice? Did we wait too long? Did we go too soon? We don't get that answer. We just responded based on what we knew and what we could see, and we have to accept that. We have to give ourselves that benefit of a doubt.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah, it was hard, but I truthfully don't recall who told me this or where I read it, but I was told that it's better to let them go a week too early than an hour too late. And I
Mhm.
did take a lot of comfort in that because, realistically, from a physical standpoint, Noah probably could have kept going. He probably could have made it to his 17th birthday. He was only about 6 weeks off, but cognitively, it would have been for me and for you
Mhm.
and not for him.
Yeah, and that was it. So we timed it with Noah. We made the decision when he was done with work. He didn't have a life that was his anymore. Like when he came to the office with me, I could watch him every day. I could take care of him. I could make sure he was okay. But if he couldn't be in the office with me, he couldn't be in the house alone.
No,
And we
absolutely
couldn't take
not.
care of him without that. So the life we would have continued for him would not have been good. So it was a hard decision, but I do believe we made the right one. And then going
Yeah,
back to Calvin, there was no choice. There
yeah,
was no, if we had been able to make a choice, it would have been, an hour beforehand, and we just didn't have the information.
right.
So those tragic, I have no choice ones, you want to say, could I have known? Was there something else I could have seen beforehand? But in some ways, they take that guilt off because there's no, I chose this. I made that decision. I did this. It just had to happen.
Yeah. And with Spike, I hate to say we lucked out because it was awful what happened. Spike she was a senior cat. She was probably 12. We got up one morning and she had passed in the night. She had been very healthy up until that point. It genuinely came out of nowhere. It was very shocking, but in some ways, like not having to make that decision and not having to watch her decline. I mean, she was really in good
Mhm.
health other than not being alive. The vet determined that she had basically a kitty heart attack. So she went
Mhm.
very quickly, which was a blessing. And the cat before her, Minion, was a cancer survivor. And it kept coming back. And it just got to the point where
Mhm.
she and her remarkably advanced age couldn't fight it anymore. And again, we had to make that decision, when she hadn't eaten for a couple days.
And trust us, we tried. I was spoon
Man.
feeding this cat gravy, literally. And we had like 12 different types of food to literally anything, and
Oh,
just
at least 12, more than
she was
that.
done. Yeah, she was just done, and she was my cat that helped me survive moving away from everything I know and go to grad school. She was. So losing her was hard. It's still hard.
Yeah.
It is. And
Yeah, and
like
that's something I was actually thinking about earlier today. Losing the pets that we in particular have really feels like we've not lost, but we've moved on from a part of our lives that we used to have. All of the pets we had in Virginia are gone. We had Minion, Spike, Calvin, and Noah, and we moved moved the ball into a townhouse in Virginia, and they're all gone.
yeah.
It's a different era of life that we're living now, and it feels weird in a lot of ways.
It is. I think it highlights a lot of how we're different, of how our life is different now. Everything about us is different. And it's not bad. It's just hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's,
Noah was that dog, that everyone I feel like on the internet is talking about, the dog that you had as a 20 something that got you through that weird stage in life. That was him. He's gone. So when am I going to feel like a real adult?
hasn't happened yet.
You
I think
know,
that's a myth.
Yeah, I guess, but it's something I was thinking about earlier, just that weird passage of
Mm.
time and
Yeah. It is weird. And I mean, it shows a lot in how we deal with grief and how we keep going on too. So feeling grief makes you want to stop and pause and stay there in that. Now, you want to preserve what you can. It's hard to pick up the bowls. It's hard to
Mhm.
put the collars away. It's hard to, if it's a horse, there's a lot of saddle and tack and an entire stall. It's a lot of stuff to move on from. And it is very hard because you don't want to lose what it meant. You don't want to lose those memories. You don't want to lose it. Like this was a significant chunk of our lives wrapped up in these pets.
Mhm.
And we've grown and learned so much from them and had so much love given to them. It doesn't go away, but it's hard to trust that it's all still there when you let yourself recognize that time is still going and you are still going, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how normal people go back to work and everything after, losing a pet you've had for 15, 16 years. I had the benefit of being able to cry into the coats of countless dogs and cats afterwards and, be by myself all day and usually hold it together long enough to check in or check someone out. But I don't know how normal people like go about their day to day life after a loss like that.
And sometimes I can't. Like, I was lucky enough to have a good friend that I work with that looked at me and called me an idiot and gave me the next day off. Thank
Yeah.
you, Amanda. I love you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I would have pushed myself to work, but it was a
Yeah.
bad idea.
I went back to work the next day. We said goodbye to Noah on a
Okay.
Monday and the next day back to work. Because I think
And
that's what I personally needed, I
Mhm.
think.
You did. But I know there's a lot of people that can't. They need that time to sit and grieve. They need that time to do whatever their process is. And there's a lot of value in rituals. There is a lot of value in this is culturally, this is familially, this is personally how I say goodbye, how I value this life, how I cherish these memories. And to give yourself the time and the ability to do that is incredibly important. And there's that one. There's an entire box in my background that is full of Noah. His hair, his
Literally.
paw prints. He is in that box. Like, he is literally there in that square. All the stuff of him. He needs to be. That's where he exists.
Yeah. I keep thinking we need to spread some of his ashes somewhere, but I feel
Mhm.
like it's been 2.5 years and I'm still not quite ready to do that.
There's no timeline. If it's human, if it's animal, it doesn't matter. There's no timeline on your grief. You want to make sure you're being healthy, that you're
Mhm.
eating, that you're sleeping, that you're showering, that you're taking care of yourself, that you're paying your bills, that you're still cherishing the loving connections that you have.
Yeah.
And you're still going to feel grief. You're still going to feel sad. I mean, we talk about our pets and we're choking up here. And
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
been years. It's been years for me. Talk
Yeah.
about my horse, I will start crying. And it has been a
Yeah.
lot of years for him.
Yeah.
I will. I do when I talk about them. I cry. Because we still love them. And because that's what grief is. We love them and they're not here to be loved. But the love is still here. So we feel it. So we cry.
Yeah. That's kind of the magic of grief. You tend to only remember the good, wonderful things and you forget about all the shameless thievery that Noah did in his old age, or all the stuff of mine that Minion broke,
It's
or
yours. Always.
Spike crawling out on the outside window of our fourth floor apartment. You only think about the best parts of them.
And even those parts, you laugh, you smile, and you love them all the more.
Yeah.
Because the irritation and the frustration wasn't about your pet. It was about the, what did you chew up now? What did you eat now? Where have you thrown up now? How many cords can Minion chew through because she's mad at Kasie for something? But yeah, like, it's not about that. It's about, oh yeah, this was them. They were here.
Yeah.
Here was the thing.
Yeah. And there's a lot of talk about either, I don't want to say replacing, but how soon after is it appropriate to get another pet? And that's going to be I'm thinking I should have waited longer to get you, little snot. Kirby is barking to go outside. Hey, is it best to take a appropriate quote amount of time to grieve before getting another pet? Should you get one right away? Is it disrespectful to get one right away? There's no right answer. It's whatever feels right for you.
You want to be able to be the owner you want to be for your new pet. So you do want to make sure you have the ability to care for it. You do want to make sure you have the time. If you just lost a cat and you're working 12 hours a day, getting a brand new puppy is not the best idea. Like, you want to make sure practicality matters. But as for appropriateness and propriety, those are made up.
Yeah.
Those are the things like, if you go on a date, don't call someone for 3 days. It's a lie. It's a lie someone made so that they could say they had the answer when there was no real answer. If you find the right next pet for you, okay, go for it. If you haven't yet and it just doesn't feel right yet, okay, not the right time yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so there's no wait this long until you get a new pet. There is make sure that you are holding yourself together. You're eating, you're sleeping, you're drinking fluids, you're leaving your house once in a while, you're paying your bills, all that. Make sure that it's the right pet to fit with you and that you can put that effort in.
Or get down.
Caring for pets, caring for people, caring for everything is such an odd thing because it doesn't stop. There's no limit. There's no, I can love one dog and I can never love anything else. If you're open to it, you can grow. You will have that guilt, you will have that grief, you will feel that grief, you will feel that loss, and you will feel love for whoever or whatever you love next. They can both exist.
Yeah. The number of times I hear from people, I can't do it again. I can't go through that grief again. And you can usually tell who means it and who is going to be taken in by some other cute little face 6 months from now.
Me, I'm the sucker. Totally the sucker. Absolutely the sucker. Can't help it.
No,
Cute.
I can't imagine our life without pets in it. I remember when we lost Calvin. When Calvin was our last cat, we decided we were going to get sibling cats next time. That way we could get two at the same time. They could, play together, keep each other company and all that. But then we lost Calvin very unexpectedly. And the house was without cats for the first time in our lives as a couple. 20 years we had always had at least one cat, and then all of a sudden there were none. And I didn't like it. It just, the place felt so empty. Something was missing. And, I know a lot of people will say, well, it's just a cat. You never see them or anything like that. Ours are not like that. Ours were very in your face. They were like small dogs, really. And just being without them felt so foreign to me.
Yeah. It's just, you could tell there was something we were used to having. We were used to having that interaction, and it was missing. And again, it wasn't, oh, I need to replace my cat. I need to, oh, I don't have Calvin. I need a new Calvin. I don't have Minion. I need a new Min. It wasn't. It was, this is a thing I value in my life. This is an interaction I value, and I want to continue to have interactions in this realm.
Yeah.
This is something I need.
Yeah. And I think that was how it was for you after we lost Noah. Like, you had gone to work with a dog for 10
12
years?
years.
12
12.
years. Yeah. Holy smokes.
Hundreds of clients, thousands of sessions every single day. Noah was with me for 12 years at work. He has seen some shit. The dog has seen some shit.
Never
Kirby has
brought
now
home a
seen some shit.
paycheck.
He's on my name tag, though.
I mean, I guess he should have, like, at least gotten a gold watch when he retired.
He got a plaque.
He did
It's
get a
hanging in my
plaque.
office.
I love that
Hanging in my
plaque.
office. I do too. He got a plaque. There is a Noah-shaped pillow in my office. I have a picture of him over here. There's a lot of Noah memorabilia in our life because he was the best therapy dog ever and just amazing.
Yeah. He was
Kirby's got
actually the
some good
greatest
shoes.
dog to ever walk the earth. I don't know if people know that. I try and keep it quiet. He was actually the greatest dog to walk the planet.
Mm-hmm. A reject repo puppy. He was the best.
Yep, he was.
And he's always going to be. And that's
Yeah.
sitting with the grief of the loss and being able to keep supporting it to remain in the love instead of going towards the guilt and the blame and the isolation is that important step. Noah was the best dog in the world. We share his memories. We talk about him. We remember him. We miss him. We cry about him. And we love him.
Mm-hmm.
Actively, currently, consistently, we love him. Still do. And yeah, it was a hard decision to make. It was to protect him. And that was important to us.
Right.
And that's okay. But that I think is something a lot of people struggle with, is not giving into that guilt side and not sitting in the emptiness of the loss instead of sitting in that love of them and being able to share that. That is that danger side of grief.
Yeah. And I think that wanting to avoid the grief at all and all of those bad feelings, I have seen it firsthand. People hang on to their animals much longer than is healthy for either involved. And the way I avoided doing that with our pets is I didn't want our last memories of him to be bad ones. And I get it. You and I, more than most people, I think, understand what that grief is and how awful it is. But the way to you can't run from it forever. You just can't. They are not going to live forever. You have to say goodbye to them someday. So keeping them around for days, weeks, or months when the kinder thing would have been to let them go, it is not the way.
It's not, and it doesn't help. So one of the things that we bring up often in group is your grief doesn't actually change size. The amount you loved your pet, the amount you're grieving doesn't actually change. It just feels more manageable as you continue on because you increase your life around it. So like the amount that we miss Noah and Calvin and Min and Spike and Demi, like it's still there. And now we have Kirby and Trigger and Bongo and Faye and Rusty and Boxer and Uber. Like there's more love, there's more life, there's more parts of our life to balance everything out. So that grief is still there. It still hurts when it hits against things. And there's so much else there to buffer it too and to share it with and to remember the good parts during. That it helps. It really does. It kills us and it's still worth it. It's a death that's worth dying. So, given our technical difficulties and the sad content and the fact that it is late at night, we're going to wrap it up here. So, thank you all for joining us. I will put info in there about our pet loss group if anyone's interested. We're here. Yeah, this is hard, heavy stuff, so don't do it alone. Reach out to people, reach out to friends. If you found us online once, you can find us online again. Kasie pinches for Jess all the time, and she is awesome, and we thank her for that. But we're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Apple Podcasts, we're anywhere you can find a podcast. We have social media. It's just doesn't get used often because life is more important than social media these days, and we'll get back to there. But if you need us, or if you have comments, questions, concerns, anything, you can find us, and we exist. Thank you so much for joining. Again, Kasie, thank you for saving my butt every time. I love you dearly. Let's go to bed. Yeah. All right. Talk to y'all later. Bye.